Hey, this is Darrell Gurney with CareerGuy.com, always bringing you the best in talent and highlighting the best in talent. I'm sitting here today with Jim Loftus, and Jim is the Captain Kirk of the content universe. Yeah, I want to know more about that too. Anyhow, welcome, Jim.
Thank you, Darrell. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, good to have you here. So tell me about this. So I grew up with Star Trek, and William Shatner was my childhood god, and there's been a lot of Captain Kirks since then. But what does that have to do with you? How are you the Captain Kirk of the content universe?
Well, the more I look back over what I've done and where I've been, the more I realized how many times I was charting courses into new frontiers in the content space, in leaving newspapers and getting into digital media, and then learning about television from there. It just seemed like it made sense that I've exhibited leadership and creative problem solving, just like Captain Kirk always did, and I've gone exploring, so to speak.
Tell me about this then. So content. You're mentioning a lot of things in there. So you've been in the content space in what realms? What does that encompass?
Well, I started as a traditional newspaper journalist, and then as the internet began to be considered as a content delivery vehicle, I signed on with the very early stages of ESPN's website, and helped build that. We sort of made it up as we went, and that we were somewhat like the enterprise. We were out there on our own, figuring things out. So I was with ESPN in the sports space, the digital sports space, for 12 years. Then I joined the NFL and helped rebuild and relaunch their website, NFL.com, and led that team on the editorial side, on the content side, for 4 years. It's just something that I've always done, is creating new content products.
Wow, those are two huge platforms too, right? Those were probably really cutting edge because they were at the front end, right, of putting digital content out there.
Absolutely, and a lot of things that I helped put in place 10 years ago are still in place now, and either at ESPN or adopted by other brands as the best practices.
Well, that says a lot though, right? Because in the digital space, in the technology space, usually within 6 months, stuff is obsolete. So how do you set things up? How have you set things up that are still in place 10 years later?
Well, it's more the display of the content and not so much the technology. The technology always changes, you're right. How you do it changes, but what you do doesn't change all that much. And for example, when I was with ESPN for about a 2.5 year span, I was in charge of the content for the Insider subscription product, one of the earliest paid content platforms on the web. And I noticed in looking at our numbers that we were having an incredible drop off from people clicking a link, expressing interest in the content, but never following through and actually subscribing. And so I worked with our engineering and design teams to figure out a better way to walk them through that funnel. Instead of click the link and immediately be asked to sign up, I said, let's let them click the link and see the first couple paragraphs of the article, whet their appetite, pique their interest, and then say, look, to read the rest, click here to subscribe. And it's a different pathway to lead them from that first expression of interest all the way through the conversion. In the 2.5 years that I ran the content side of Insider, by producing better content, a redesigned homepage to present it better, and a different path to lead them through the process, we grew subscriptions by 300%.
Wow.
And as a result, as you would imagine, we grew revenue by 300% in 2.5 years. They still use that method of showing the first couple of paragraphs within a box to log in or click here to subscribe.
Now, is this a natural kind of, I mean, that's a great, I mean, you say it and it's like, well, yeah, that would be the thing to do, but that's a very marketing, savvy. What do you attribute your that to? You're kind of just in touch with the way people think, or is it your background as a reporter, knowing the way the mind works?
Um, a little bit, a little bit. It's understanding your audience. It's understanding what they're looking for, and that goes back to the early journalism training of how to write a headline. You have 5 words or 7 words to convey what's in this entire story and get people to not turn the page, to stay here and read. How do you convey that in a headline? Well, you take that one step further and say, if I get them into the story, how do I compel them to want to click or to sign up so they can read the rest of it? It's the same concept.
Now, innovative thinking is one of Captain Kirk's definite qualities, but also leadership. How does that show up in your demonstration of Captain Kirkness in the content world?
It's another one that's always hard for me to express because it just comes naturally. That I always have found myself wanting to know more and learn more, which then leads me to the front of the room. And when I learn more and know more, I can then turn around and say, okay, folks, this is how we're going to get this done. Here's the best path, or here's the plan, here's the course. And that's, I've always just sort of gravitated into leadership roles.
What do your enterprises look like? Do you have any stories of how you've taken your own teams or into places no man has gone before?
Well, I don't know if it's necessarily a case of no one going there before, but when the NFL asked me to leave ESPN and move out to Los Angeles to run the newsroom at NFL.com.
They recruited you?
They recruited me. I was running the NFL coverage at that time for ESPN.com. And they were going to bring their website in-house after having a third-party manage it for 10 years. And they we're staffing everything. They were hiring engineers and developers and designers, and they wanted me to come out and hire and run a newsroom on the editorial content side. So I was hired in May, and we were set to relaunch the site in August in time for the NFL season. And I had to hire an entire staff, train that entire staff, write job descriptions, write processes and procedures, map out this plan to get a dozen or more people on board, understanding, working in the same direction. In order that season was coming. They weren't going to delay it on our behalf. We had to be ready. And that's, for 2 weeks I worked alone, drafting these plans until my staff showed up in June. And then we had to learn. We had to get to know each other, learn strengths and weaknesses, assign particular roles, sort of decide who sits where on the bridge. So I can sit in the captain's chair and say, keep us on course.
Mm-hmm. So there's the multiple dimensions. There's the innovative thinking. There's the leadership of an enterprise to get there. From what I know about you too, though, is it doesn't stop at the office of ESPN or NFL, right? You're a content guy when you sleep at night, right?
That is true. That is true. I've started a couple of things sort of in my spare time, just passion projects because I can.
What's your biggest side passion project right now?
Biggest side passion project is a site called maxlaxla.com. It's about lacrosse. Lacrosse is an emerging sport here in Southern California. Doesn't get the attention that football and basketball do on the high school or college levels, but it's growing. And my sons played, and I was interested, but I couldn't find a resource anywhere else on the web to tell me who's who, what teams are good, what schools, what players are good. So I created one.
What's I guess as we wrap up here, another aspect of Captain Kirk is kind of getting a vision or being a visionary for the future. Where's digital content going right now? What should organizations, given that you were on the cutting edge in the beginning, where are they going now? What's the main thing to be aware of now as digital content continues to grow and expand?
The biggest thing to know is it's all going to happen here. It has to be consumable on a handheld device, whether that's a phone or a tablet. So whatever content products you're creating, it has to be viewable on a small screen. The other one is the social media space. That's audience development and content distribution. To be able to send and broadcast your content out to people who can then discover it while scrolling through their phone and click through and view it on their phone. Those are the two areas, and that's really nothing new. That's over the last couple of years, it's migrated that way. But it's going to keep going further and further in that direction.
And I guess those areas or organizations definitely need that kind of innovative Captain Kirk leadership to make the most out of that, because it continues to be a whole new world, doesn't it?
It does. And there are new roles being defined within that world for how to get there, how to build. I mean, like I said, when we started in 1995, we made it up as we went. We all did a little bit of everything in terms of figuring out the design and figuring out the functionality. Now each of those is its own specific role within the development process, but it's something that I have experience in and background in. Same way Captain Kirk can probably sit in any of those seats and get the job.
Right, he can do Sulu's job or Scotty's job, right?
Absolutely, and he ends up doing that in every other episode, crawling into the into the engine room
when he's not getting frustrated with Bones.
Right. Exactly.
Right. Well, first off, thanks for taking some time to share this with us, and what's both been in the history of digital content and what's coming, and just hoping that you continue to have these opportunities to keep bringing that leadership forward. And
absolutely, thanks very much for having me. It's fun to talk about. It can be whatever we want it to be.
And where can people reach you, Captain Kirk of digital of the content universe? Where can people reach you if they want to have some questions or exploring this?
Well, they can find me at www.jimloftus.info, info.
Okay.
Is my website. You can find me on LinkedIn. Honestly, if you Google Maxlax LA, you'll find me there.
And that's MAXLAXLA.
Yes.
.com.
.com.
Okay.
I have probably half a dozen different email addresses and phone numbers and Twitter accounts.
Well, you're a content guy. You should, right?
You can find me on Twitter. I'm at JLofty on Twitter, so I'm everywhere.
All right. Well, good. Thanks for taking some time with us, Jim, and thanks for viewing. And check in with us here at Career Guy. We're always highlighting for you the best of talent. Make it a great day.